I'm going to tell you something that might surprise you. Did you know that 100 million Americans listen to podcasts every single month? And that 67% of business professionals are more likely to listen to podcasts? And what that tells me is they're hungry for information. They want to know what's going on in the industry and what industry leaders think. So, how do you choose the right podcast to listen to? I know for myself, I move from podcast to podcast based on the topic, based on the host, looking for different nuggets or different information that I can take away to use to apply to my clients or apply to my own business. So when my business partner and I decided we're going to start a podcast, I was wondering, what are we thinking? How are we going to stand out? How are we going to get 100 million people to listen to us? Well, the reality, that's not our goal. Is what we really wanted to do is engage in real interesting conversations with some of the smartest people we know in the industry. So that's why we created Business Uncomplicated. So I'm Rich Nazzaro, founder of SaaS Business Advisors, and I'm going to be here with my co-founder, Andy Warble. And we want to talk about business transformation. We love it. We breathe it. It's what we work with our clients on all the time. And we're really passionate about how companies achieve digital transformation, how they're able to take their current processes, their current technology, and move it into the next realm and the next evolution of their success. So we've learned a lot with working with customers over the years from our time at companies like Dell or Oracle or Salesforce or Eloqua. We've always thought through what's the process, what's the technology, how do these things work together, and really how are companies going to be successful? And what we found is there's a massive gap. There's a massive gap between what is approved as a business case in the boardroom or what the expectations are of the ELT to what actually happens on the ground when you're trying to implement this. And so real world companies go through digital transformations all the time, and some nail it and some struggle. And so we really want to get into that discussion about what makes a good transformation. But we don't want to shy away from what happens when the transformation's over and your uh, vendor moves to steady state and it's just about adopting the platform. What happens when the SOW ends and your SI is gone and now your team needs to drive forward the continued transformation and evolution, and maybe you don't have the skill set? Where is the ROI? At the end of the day, these digital transformations need to pay for themselves. And often we're not following that progressive motion of tracking the numbers from inception to completion and continue to measure that ROI and what we get. And so the digital transformation may have looked great at launch, but did it really promise what it needed to get done in order to be successful? So that's where there is a gap, and we want to bridge it. And we want to make it uncomplicated. So every single episode of Business Uncomplicated is designed to give you something you can walk away with. We want to work with people who are going to give you practical advice with real conversations with real business leaders who've been through it, who've been in the trenches, who have the insights and the thoughts and the approaches that you may not have thought of. Or there's just that nugget that just triggers a thought for you and how you can do something different within your business. But here's the thing, we don't want to shy away from those messy conversations. The vendor who promised you something that didn't deliver, the SOW that wasn't written quite right, so the transformation didn't get off to the right track, the change management that wasn't prioritized, so now people aren't adopting it, or the business isn't transforming at the speed or rate you thought it would. And sometimes when everything feels like it's falling apart and you need that strategic lifeline, this is where we want to have those conversations. Because life isn't about the easy path, it's about all the heartaches and challenges that make us who we are, how we rise above what seems sometimes like an impossible task. And sometimes these digital transformations seem like that. So business doesn't have to be complicated, but it does have to be real. So whether you're a CEO navigating your next digital transformation or a CIO trying to figure out the strategy and connecting it to the execution, or you're tired of implementations that promise that never deliver, this is the show for you. So we're going to try to give you the tools and insights. And yes, we're going to try to have some fun along the way. So we invite you to listen to the podcast and engage with us. We love to hear your stories and share ours and our friends and our colleagues' stories around how business can be uncomplicated. Thanks.